Mm-hmm.
Whenever you talk to somebody from Catholicism, that's the thing that they base their faith on. I'm like, no, the Bible. That's the thing
Right.
you base your faith on.
Yeah. And it's very hard sometimes to have patience with these people, because when we see it, it's just clear as day. This is what it says. But then I think, you go back to the first century, when they went from the old law to the new law, now they're being told physical stuff you had to do, you don't have to do that anymore. Now, these were people that were raised as kids, as a Jew. You had to burn incense, you had to sacrifice, you couldn't eat this, you had all of those laws. And now all of a sudden it's like, no, we don't do the physical anymore, it's spiritual. So don't think that they just changed on a dime and understood. It was like, oh yeah, you're right. It took some time. And so it's the same to this day. We got to take time.
You honestly, you can't fault them. I mean, you go through the book of Acts, and you see a lot of that. And you even see it with the Apostle Peter,
Yeah.
where Paul has to rebuke him to his face because he's, kind of getting off to the side with the Jewish people.
Yep.
And having meals with them instead of, meals with the entire church.
Mm-hmm.
And even he, as an apostle, fell prey to that.
Yeah. And Jesus, Jesus talking to the Samaritan woman, and what? What are you doing? Right? And so it just, they couldn't grasp it. And again, it's the same thing today. When it comes to the death of Jesus, it's tough to talk to them about this because, again, they believe sin isn't real. Sin is imaginary. And since Jesus could not destroy what didn't exist, they say that he came to destroy the belief in sin. That's why he came. Jesus' students did not perform many wonderful works until after his crucifixion, when they learned that he really didn't die. You see how just crazy that sounds? But again, that's what they teach. And when you talk to these people, they will push back and say, well, no, Jesus didn't really die. No, sin doesn't exist. It's a belief. They deny the unity of the person of Jesus Christ. They deny the death. They deny the resurrection. They deny the ascension of Jesus. And so, we look at their beliefs and we just, got to shake our heads. It's like, where in the world do you get this? And it's from man, or in this case, a woman, Mrs. Eddy, So questions have been asked to these Christian scientists. Well, do you use doctors? Do you undergo surgery? Do you take medicine? Because based on your belief, you shouldn't have to take medicine because what you have isn't real. And so they will say, well, yes, we do, because sometimes the mind is weak. So that's why I take the medicine, because my mind is weak, and that helps my mind. Right? So they always go back to the mind. That's what it is. They don't baptize. Baptism, what they say, is just a purification of the mind. Do they take the Lord's Supper? Yes and no. Mrs. Eddy taught that the use of bread and wine hindered the true sense of communion, and her followers would kneel in silent communion, but they don't remember his death. They don't remember his death because they don't believe that he actually died. And so they sometimes partake of it, but sometimes they don't. And so again, they're a little, when you hear Christian scientists, it's very tough to talk to these people. It's not saying we shouldn't talk to them, but it is very, very tough. Has anybody ever had any interaction with a Christian scientist? Yeah? How did that go for you?
It was a little frustrating because anytime you try to go to the Bible, they're not going to listen to you.
No.
They shut down. You can literally see the test home, the bars, the eyes, from Jesus was a created being. I'm like, but the Gospel of John, chapter 1. You know, they're like, oh, he's a created being. God created him.
Yeah.
Okay? He was with God in the beginning. He was God. So, through him, everything was created. It says it right here, you know.
Did they ever bring up Mrs. Eddie?
They did not bring up Mrs. Eddie. The interaction was pretty short at the Starbucks. So, you know, we were just talking religion, and I explained what church I attended, and they explained the church, and I was like, wow, you're a rarity. I haven't met one either. So,
Yeah, they are, yeah.
But I do remember as a kid growing up, there were several instances where Christian scientists actually were taken to court because they would not allow medical doctors to treat their children for diseases that would kill their children. And they were going to solve the problem through their own means. So that is, whenever you said that they take medicine, that must be them falling off the bandwagon. Because from what I remember as a child, that they didn't have anything to do with doctors or medicine or anything, if possible.
I worked with a woman that was a true Baptist, but her husband got into this science stuff. And she had 2 little boys, and he refused to let her doctor them to the point she thought they were going to die. She separated from her husband and went home with her kids to be able to take them to the doctor behind his back and barely save their life. Now, she ended up divorcing this guy, and about 4 years later, he dies. And I've often wondered, why didn't he go to the doctor?
Right.
I think I know.
Yeah, right.
But he was a healthy young man, about 29 years old. He died. But he was hardcore with his children not being
Oh, yeah.
able to go to the doctor.
Although my experiences recently with medical establishment makes me want to hop on that bad like a little. That's a joke.
Like the my age or her age, it's one doctor after another.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of leads into, you know, because some people get them confused, Christian Scientists and the Church of Scientology. There's some similarities because they're not big on medicine either, Scientology. But the Church of Scientology is kind of a quasi-religious movement that gained a lot of notoriety because of celebrities that, Tom Cruise, John Travolta, Kirstie Alley, you know, all these big name celebrities got into it. And of course there is Leah Remini, who was on that show King of Queens. While she was filming that show, she was a part of the Church of Scientology. And she saw some stuff, and it's a very good program what she does, because there's another person that was in it with her, and they reveal all the stuff that they saw. You know, people going missing, family members. If you try to leave the church, then they would go after you, and your family would like have nothing to do with you anymore. I mean,
It's a cult.
It is. It's very much a cult.
They use intimidation tactics. The guy that started, L. Ron Hubbard, he was a failed science fiction author. The only thing that he ever did that actually made it to screen was John Travolta got to produce After the Earth. And now I know why he was a failed science fiction author, because that was an awful movie. If that was his books, it was garbage. But so he thought starting a cult would make him more money, because he wasn't making too much money at the science fiction. But I've ridden by their little hub in Clearwater, you know, the headquarters several times, and I can remember driving by. It's almost chilling when you drive by there, because I did some research in college, because I had to write a paper on them, and the stuff even back then, in the early 90s. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
out and was really horrible.
Oh, yeah.
But now the stuff that we know about them is even worse.
Mm-hmm.
They go as far as carrying people in Hollywood with each other and signing contracts for a certain amount of time and number of children they will have.
Mm-hmm.
That is how much control they have over these people's lives.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I know Tom Cruise, his assistants, his whole entourage are all Scientologists. He will not allow any non-Scientologist to be in his circle. And so they protect him. Because he's one of the main people in that religion. But what they do is they promise hope. That's what they promise. They promise hope and helping solutions to the lonely and the weak and the confused, the emotionally ill of society. And what they do is through a high-tech blend of religion and psychotherapy. And it's not cheap. It is not cheap. What they call auditing sessions can cost as much as $1,000 an hour.
I got
So,
one for free down in Newport.
do what?
I got one for free down in Newport.
Oh, you did one for free?
They had this stand down there where they were trying to make new converts, and you would go in there and do the stress test where you hold on to the little bar and it has a meter.
Yep.
And I was like, what is this? What am I doing? But, I just wanted to see what it was about. So
Right. And how did your test result?
I was totally stressed.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's very, and that's why there's a lot of celebrities involved. I mean, there's a lot of money in it. It's $1,000 an hour. Or $12,500 for a 12.5-hour intensive session. So they're dropping almost $13,000 for just 13 hours of an intensive auditing. Cynthia Kisser, I don't know how you say her name. She's a former Chicago-based director of a cult awareness group, said this. She said, quote, "No group prompts more phone calls for help than Scientology. No cult extracts more money from its members. It's all about money." And when you watch certain programs about the ends of Scientology, people lose a lot of money. They put their hope in what they're being taught, and they lose a lot of money. But it operates 700 centers in 65 different countries. And they're trying to become mainstream. They would love to become mainstream. It's also reported that church members buy massive amounts of its books from retail stores to propel the titles onto bestseller lists. So when you see, this Scientologist wrote this book and it's the #1 bestseller, that's because they tell all of their members, go buy this book. And so it shoots the sales up, and then it makes people think, oh, well, there must be something to this, because that's a #1 best-selling book, and I'm going to check it out. And so they check it out, and they kind of get pulled in. Yep. Dianetics, that's right. They run ads all of the time. There's commercials now. I'm sure you've seen commercials where they're advertising Scientology. Come on in. Everything is wonderful. And what is the truth about this religion that claims to be the most vital movement on earth today? Well, again, Russ mentioned the founder, Ron Hubbard. And as he mentioned, he was a science fiction author. And in 1950, he wrote Dianetics, the modern science of mental health. And it sold millions of copies. And it was advertised as a new way to promote mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And again, this movement known as Dianetics in the early 1950s was eventually renamed to Scientology. So that's where they come up. It was Dianetics, that's what they called it, and then it transitioned into being called Scientology. The church was officially incorporated in California in 1954. So it's been around for a while. And when you look at some of the claims that Scientologists make, it does sound very science fiction. Very science fiction. They claim that Ron Hubbard graduated in civil engineering from George Washington University as a nuclear physicist. Huh? Yep. No, he did not. That's the claim that they make. He did not. University records report that he only attended 2 years. And during the second year, he was put on academic probation. So, again, they lie. They cover up things because if they said, oh yeah, he only went 2 years and he got put on academic probation, I'm not going to follow that guy. But when you say, oh, he's a nuclear physicist, then, oh man, this is a smart guy. Hubbard's PhD came from Sequoia University in California. And it turned out to be a mail-ordered degree. He just ordered it. So he didn't actually go and earn it. It was a mail-ordered degree. One of his first principles was to teach that you are not your body. Again, that's where it's kind of similar to the scientists, but yet different. You are not your body. According to Scientology, you are what they call a thetan, Thetan, a thetan. And that's a spirit being which has lived for 300 trillion years. I know, right? And so they spend their years, thetans is what they call them, spend their years entering bodies only to die and re-enter another life somewhere else in the universe. So you see how it sounds like science fiction? He was a science fiction writer, and their beliefs, that is pure science fiction. Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. It's very confusing. They believe that each past, again, Thetan's life, has had negative experiences called engrams. So they got a word for everything. And it is the presence of engrams that make the person react so overtly. And so the solution is to remove them. But according to Scientology, engrams are removed by auditing. So you had your engrams removed for free. You had it done for free. And so the auditing is done, and I've not done it. I've only seen it, so Russ can probably explain it a little bit better. But it's like a lie detector. Mm-hmm. It's an e-meter. Mm-hmm. Yep. And so, yeah, you hold those little e-meters, what they call, and it measures electrical charges in the skin. While I'm sure you discussed your life, right? Yes. Yep. I had to talk with it on in detail. They wanted detail. Yep. And so it measures, again, those electrical charges. And so Hubbard argued that unhappiness comes from those engrams. And auditing sessions with the e-meter, according to Hubbard, could rid one of those engrams. Again, it's just their beliefs, the stuff that they come up with. You know, Ron Hubbard knew that what he was saying was not true. You know, and he's just, again, it's a fraud.
I'm not disrespectful to them whenever I did it. I was very respectful. You know, I did it just like they asked. Just because it was just the curiosity. I couldn't help myself. I was like, I've got to figure it out. I got to see this.
Yeah.
So did they pass you and?
No, apparently I was full of all kinds of problems. And
And
they can solve it.
And what they say is like when you do the auditing, it can rid you of blindness. Like it'll get rid of your blindness. It'll get rid of all the negative that you have and the negativity that you have.
Yes. But inside, I'm just cracking up because
Oh, yeah.
in my brain, I'm just dying.
Oh yeah.
You know, I'm
So-
having my own little funny time.
Look for next Wednesday. Well, we may do our singing night next Wednesday. But if not, we'll do it next week or 2 weeks from now. Do some research on Scientology and look at that. And I mean, it completely goes against Scripture. I mean, they don't care about the Bible. They say that they do. They really don't. But we'll discuss some of this stuff next week or 2 weeks from now, and we'll go from there.